Clara sat by the window, her wheelchair parked close to the glass so she could watch the world outside. The morning sun spilled over the streets, making the leaves on the trees shimmer like gold. It should have been a peaceful sight, and in some ways it was. But today it made her feel the sharp edge of loneliness even more. Her birthday had arrived quietly and without notice. She hadn't expected anything this year. No calls, no messages, no friends stopping by. Just another day that would blend into the monotony of her apartment. The same apartment she had lived in since her accident. She traced her finger along the condensation on the glass, leaving little trails behind. She had once loved birthdays. As a child, they were a day of excitement, cake, laughter, and presents. But that was years ago, a different life. After the car accident, everything had changed. Her legs didn't respond. Her independence had been clipped, and slowly people had drifted away. Some had stopped visiting because it was too difficult to see her struggle. Others simply forgot. She understood that life moved on, but it still hurt. Her small apartment smelled faintly of vanilla. It was from a candle she had lit the night before, trying to make the place feel a little more welcoming. She took a deep breath, letting the scent fill her lungs, and tried to ignore the emptiness. She had a small breakfast, a piece of toast with butter and jam, and a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm while she thought about what to do with the day. Normally, she would have gone out to the cafe nearby, the one where the owner knew her name and always had a smile ready. But today, even the thought of putting on her coat and wheeling herself down the street felt exhausting. Her phone lay on the table, silent. She stared at it, hoping maybe a message would appear. Sometimes friends from work or school remembered. Sometimes family sent a simple greeting. But as she checked, scroll after scroll, she saw pictures of birthdays, celebrations, people hugging, laughing, having fun. She smiled faintly at some of them. Others she barely knew, friends of friends, just memories of what life felt like when it was lighter. None of them thought of her today. A faint sound outside caught her attention. Children's laughter echoed from the street below, bouncing off the buildings and reaching her window. She pressed her hand against the glass, watching a group of kids chase each other along the sidewalk. They had no idea, she thought, how precious these moments of movement and freedom were. She remembered running through fields as a child, feet pounding the earth, hair flying behind her. She missed it even though it was years ago. And yet those memories were comforting and painful at the same time. She sighed, leaning her head against the window, and wondered if anyone would notice her today at all. No one would knock on her door. No one would bring balloons or cake. She had stopped expecting it, but it still stung. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a friend, anyone, appearing on her doorstep, smiling and saying, "Happy birthday." But the thought faded quickly. The reality was that she would likely end the day as she had most birthdays recently, alone with only her thoughts for company. Meanwhile, across the town, Alex was in his own world of morning chaos. A single dad raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, he juggled breakfast, school prep, and work calls all at once. Today was one of those mornings where nothing seemed to go smoothly. Lily wanted cereal, then pancakes, then cereal again. Alex was trying to find his other sock and answer an email from a client, all while keeping Lily from spilling juice on the new rug. It was hectic, exhausting, and yet he loved every second of it. As he stepped out of the building with Lily safely strapped into her car seat, he noticed a small bulletin board at the corner of the street. Flyers and posters were pinned there. Community events, lost pets, local services. One in particular caught his eye. It read, "Birthday celebration for someone special. Volunteers needed." There was no name, no address, just a phone number and an email. He paused for a moment, unsure why he felt drawn to it. He glanced at Lily, who was bouncing in her seat, her backpack straps digging into her shoulders. She was humming a tune softly to herself, unaware of her father's hesitation. Alex took a deep breath. Maybe it was the morning, maybe it was just a random impulse, but he decided to note down the number. He didn't know who the celebration was for or what kind of help they needed, but something about the idea of making someone's day better stuck with him. Back in her apartment, Clara decided it was time to get the mail. She had been putting it off, letting the pile grow, but the package sitting on the small table by the door was too heavy to ignore. With effort, she maneuvered her wheelchair to the door and reached for the package. It was awkward, clumsy, and it left her breathing heavily. She set it down on the floor next to her chair and paused. Just then, a gentle knock sounded at the door. She frowned slightly, surprised. Visitors were rare, especially unannounced ones. She hesitated, then wheeled closer. "Hello?" she called softly. "Hi," a warm voice replied. "I'm Alex. I'm here to help with—" "Well, I saw a flyer at the community center and I thought I could, I don't know, help make someone's day a little brighter?" Clara blinked, unsure what to say. It was unusual to have someone at her door with that kind of sincerity. She glanced at the small figure peeking behind him, Lily, his daughter, watching shyly. Clara's first instinct was to decline politely. She wasn't used to strangers showing interest, and she was wary of pity. But there was something in Alex's eyes, a kindness that felt genuine. "Come in," she said quietly. She moved her wheelchair back to give them space. Alex smiled and stepped inside, careful not to knock into anything. Lily followed, her eyes wide, taking in the small apartment. Alex began chatting casually, asking about her day, making small jokes to break the tension. Clara, despite herself, felt a spark of comfort. She hadn't expected someone to just care. They began tidying up some of the clutter in the living room. Alex carried things from the floor, stacking them neatly. Lily picked up stray pieces of paper, humming a tune as she worked. Clara watched, a small smile tugging at her lips. It felt strange, almost foreign, to have this gentle chaos in her home, but it also felt good. The apartment, which had felt so quiet and heavy with solitude, suddenly had life in it. "Do you live here alone?" Alex asked, as casually as possible. He didn't want to pry, but he sensed her walls were high. Clara nodded. "Yes, it's been a while." She trailed off, unsure how much to reveal. "I get it," Alex said softly. "It can be hard sometimes. I know it is for me and Lily, but we make do." There was no judgment in his voice, no pity, just a quiet acknowledgement. As they continued to chat, Clara found herself sharing small pieces of her life. Her love for painting, the books she used to read, the mornings she spent by the window watching people go by. Alex listened, genuinely interested, asking questions and commenting with empathy. Lily chimed in occasionally, asking innocent questions, her curiosity bright and unassuming. By the end of the visit, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in years, a flicker of hope. Someone had noticed her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Someone cared enough to spend time in her quiet apartment, to make the effort to bring a little light into her day. It was a small gesture, and yet it meant more than she could explain. Alex gathered his things, ready to leave, but he paused. "I can come by again tomorrow if that's okay. Maybe Lily and I can bring a little something, maybe even a cake." Clara hesitated. The thought of strangers bringing gifts was uncomfortable, yet the idea of their continued presence was comforting. She found herself nodding. Yes, that would be nice. As the door closed behind them, Clara wheeled back to the window. The sun was higher now, casting long shadows across the street. She felt lighter than she had in months, as if the weight of isolation had eased just a little. Maybe this birthday wouldn't be like the others. Maybe it could be the beginning of something new. And across town, Alex walked back to his car, Lily skipping beside him. He didn't know whose birthday it was or what would come of it, but he felt a quiet satisfaction. Sometimes, he thought, the smallest actions could change someone's entire day, or even their life. He smiled at the thought, holding Lily's hand a little tighter as they headed home, unaware that this simple act of kindness would spark a connection neither of them would ever forget. The next morning, Clara woke up earlier than usual. She didn't know why she felt a little nervous. Maybe it was the thought of seeing Alex and his daughter again, or maybe it was the strange mix of excitement and fear she hadn't felt in years. She rolled her wheelchair toward the window, peering outside at the street below. The sunlight spilled across the buildings and the city seemed alive, bustling, moving in a way that made her pulse quicken just a little. She wondered what Alex and Lily would be like today. Yesterday had been unexpected. She hadn't known what to expect when they arrived at her door. The warmth in Alex's voice, the curiosity in Lily's eyes, the way they had entered her apartment without judgment. It had been refreshing, almost overwhelming. She had spent so many years living in silence, her days structured around her routines, carefully avoiding surprises. But yesterday, for the first time in a long while, she had felt a sense of connection. Clara had spent the evening cleaning up her apartment more than usual, preparing herself for another visit. She straightened the small rug by the couch, wiped down the shelves, and even opened a small box of decorations she had tucked away months ago. She didn't know why, but something told her she wanted today to feel a little brighter. Meanwhile, across town, Alex was packing a small bag. Lily had insisted on helping. She had filled it with a few small surprises, stickers, crayons, and a tiny balloon she had found in her room. "Daddy, she'll like it," Lily said excitedly, bouncing on her toes. "I promise she'll smile," Alex chuckled, tying Lily's shoelaces. "I hope so," he said, though he felt a similar mix of excitement and uncertainty. They had no idea how Clara would react today. Yesterday had been encouraging, but there was always the chance that people didn't want anyone around, that her mood might change. Still, he hoped that a little bit of kindness, a little effort from both of them could make her morning better. When they arrived at Clara's building, she was already by the window again, her eyes watching the street. She saw the familiar shapes of Alex and Lily walking up the sidewalk. Her heart thumped unexpectedly. She hadn't realized how much she had been longing for human contact, for someone to notice her, for someone to care enough to spend time with her. She wheeled herself toward the door as they knocked. "Good morning," Alex called through the door. His voice was light and cheerful, a stark contrast to the quiet of her apartment. Clara hesitated for a moment, then unlocked the door. "Good morning," she said softly. Lily stepped inside first, holding the balloon carefully. She looked around, her eyes taking in the little details of Clara's home, the paintings on the wall, the books stacked on the table, the way sunlight filled the corners of the room. She smiled and handed Clara the balloon. It's your day," she said. Clara laughed softly, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," she said. The words felt strange, awkward, but genuine. Alex set the bag down on the counter. "We thought we could make today a little more fun," he said. "Nothing big, just some small things." Together they unpacked the bag. Lily handed Clara the stickers, insisting that they should be put somewhere visible. Alex pulled out a small notebook and suggested they could write a few messages or doodles to make the apartment feel cheerful. Clara watched them, a smile tugging at her lips. She had forgotten how simple moments like these could feel comforting. They spent the next hour arranging things. Clara's apartment, which had seemed quiet and lonely just yesterday, was now filled with colors, laughter, and movement. Lily hummed as she worked, occasionally asking questions about the things she found interesting. A framed painting, a stack of books, a small sculpture on the shelf. Clara found herself answering, telling little stories she hadn't shared with anyone in years. Alex, while helping with the setup, asked gentle questions about her life. "Did you always like painting?" he asked. Clara nodded. "Yes. Before the accident, I spent most of my free time painting landscapes. It wasn't peaceful. I haven't done it much lately, but sometimes I look at my old works and remember the feeling of it." "That sounds amazing," Alex said. "I wish I could paint like that. I can barely draw a straight line." He laughed, and Clara chuckled too. It was the first time she had laughed so freely in a long time, and it felt almost intoxicating. As they continued, Clara felt her walls slowly lowering. She hadn't realized how tightly she had held herself in, how carefully she had guarded against disappointment and pity. Alex and Lily didn't make her feel weak or helpless. They didn't act like they were doing her a favor. They were simply present, offering kindness without strings, and it was transforming the quiet of her apartment. After a while, Lily suggested they take a small break. She handed Clara a cup of tea she had insisted on making herself. Clara accepted it, surprised by the sweetness of the gesture. They sat together, sipping tea, chatting quietly. Alex told stories about his work, about the little adventures he and Lily had on weekends, and about the silly things Lily said and did. Clara listened, sometimes laughing, sometimes smiling quietly, but always feeling the warmth of their presence. At one point, Lily tugged on Clara's sleeve. "Can I see your paintings?" she asked eagerly. Clara hesitated, then nodded. She wheeled over to the corner where she kept her small collection. She hadn't looked at them in months. Each painting was a window into her past, a memory of times when life felt simpler, when she could move freely and create without limitation. Lily's eyes widened as she took in the colors and shapes, asking questions about the scenes and the stories behind them. "These are beautiful," Lily said, her voice full of wonder. "You made these?" Clara smiled, feeling a swell of pride she hadn't realized she missed. "Yes, I did," she said softly. "A long time ago," Alex watched quietly, sensing the shift in Clara's demeanor. He knew that these small moments mattered more than anything elaborate he could plan. It wasn't the cake or the decorations or even the gifts. It was the connection, the simple act of being there, of sharing time and attention, and he was determined to give her as much of it as he could. They spent the rest of the morning exploring her apartment. Lily moved from painting to book, asking about Clara's favorite stories, and even wanted to read a few passages aloud. Clara had always loved to read aloud, but she hadn't done it in years. Her voice, shaky at first, grew stronger as she read, and Lily listened with rapt attention. Alex sat nearby, smiling, watching the bond forming between his daughter and Clara. When it was time for lunch, Alex suggested they make something together. They wheeled to the small kitchen, and Clara found herself laughing at the chaos that ensued. Lily insisted on cracking the eggs while Alex chopped vegetables. Clara guided them gently, showing small tips and tricks. The kitchen, once quiet and lonely, was now full of movement, chatter, and laughter. As they ate, Clara realized something remarkable. She hadn't felt this alive, this connected in years. The accident had changed everything, leaving her isolated and lonely. But now, with Alex and Lily here, her apartment felt like a home again. She felt seen, appreciated, and for the first time in a long while, truly included. After lunch, they returned to the living room. Lily wanted to play a game, and Clara hesitated, unsure if she would be able to participate fully. But Alex encouraged her, helping to adapt the rules so she could join in. They played for hours, laughing at mistakes, celebrating small victories, and enjoying the simple joy of each other's company. By mid-afternoon, Clara felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of belonging. She realized that even a single act of kindness, repeated and genuine, could chip away at years of loneliness. She looked at Alex and Lily and felt gratitude welling up in her chest, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Before leaving, Alex knelt down slightly to Clara's level. "We'll come back tomorrow," he said gently. "Maybe we can bring a little something, just to make today even brighter." Clara nodded, a small smile on her lips. "I'd like that," she said. When the door closed behind them, she wheeled back to the window. The sun had shifted, casting golden light across the room. She looked down at the street, watching people pass, but she no longer felt the same loneliness. Something had changed. Her birthday, which had seemed like just another quiet, empty day, was turning into something new, something hopeful. And across town, Alex and Lily walked home hand in hand. Lily chattered about the stickers and the games they had played, about the balloon and the tea. Alex listened, smiling quietly to himself. He didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. Small, genuine acts of care could change a life, sometimes in ways no one could predict. As they turned the corner toward home, Lily skipped ahead and Alex looked at her, a feeling of satisfaction settling in his chest. Today had been simple, ordinary in many ways, yet it had been extraordinary. Sometimes he thought the right people showing up at the right time could make even the quietest life feel full, and he felt quietly certain that this was only the beginning of something meaningful. The next morning, Clara woke with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. Her apartment, usually quiet and still, seemed to hum with possibility. Yesterday had been unlike anything she had experienced in a long time. The presence of Alex and Lily had changed the atmosphere, filling it with warmth, laughter, and a sense of life that had been missing for years. She wheeled herself to the window, looking out at the busy street below. The sunlight reflected off the buildings, making the city sparkle. She felt a strange combination of nerves and excitement, wondering what today might bring. She had spent the previous evening arranging her small apartment. She moved a few things around to make space, cleaned up a little more than usual, and even set out a small vase with fresh flowers she had bought at a nearby store. She wanted today to feel welcoming, like a small celebration of life itself. She hadn't realized how much she had missed sharing space with others, even strangers, until yesterday. Meanwhile, across town, Alex and Lily were preparing for the visit. Lily had insisted on bringing something special. She rummaged through her room, pulling out a small box of crayons, a notebook with blank pages, and a little hand-drawn card she had made the night before. "Daddy, she'll love it," Lily said, bouncing on her toes. "I know she will." Alex smiled, tying her shoelaces. "I hope so, Pumpkin. Just remember, it's the thought that counts. That's what matters most." Lily nodded eagerly, a determined look on her face. Alex felt a similar mixture of excitement and uncertainty. They didn't know how Clara would respond today, or if she would even feel up to welcoming them again. But they were determined to try. Small acts of kindness could sometimes make a huge difference, and he hoped today could be another chance to brighten her world. When they arrived, Clara was already at the window, waiting. She felt a flutter in her chest as she recognized them walking up the sidewalk. She had prepared herself for anything, acceptance, hesitation, or even disappointment. But seeing Alex and Lily, she felt a warmth that made her forget all her worries. She wheeled herself to the door and opened it before they could knock. "Good morning," Alex called cheerfully, his smile as bright as ever. "Good morning," Clara replied softly, her voice carrying a mix of nervousness and genuine warmth. Lily stepped in first, holding her little card and notebook carefully. She handed them to Clara. "We made this for you," she said, her eyes sparkling. "It's for your day." Clara's eyes widened. She accepted the card, feeling the little weight of care in Lily's hands. She opened it slowly, reading the bright, colorful drawings and sweet, simple words. A smile spread across her face, and for the first time in months she felt truly noticed. "Thank you," she said softly, almost in disbelief. Alex set down the small bag he had brought, filled with a few surprises, a simple cake, some balloons, and small decorative items to make her apartment feel festive. He wanted today to be about warmth, laughter, and connection. Nothing extravagant, just a small gesture to show that she was not alone. Together they unpacked the bag. Clara watched Lily carefully place the stickers she had drawn onto the walls, making patterns of stars and hearts. Alex helped with the balloons, tying them to different corners of the room, laughing when one popped softly in the process. The apartment, usually quiet and still, was now alive with movement, color, and energy. Clara felt a strange, wonderful sensation, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Joy, simple and pure, flowing through her. Lily noticed a small shelf with Clara's old paintings. Her eyes lit up. "These are amazing," she exclaimed. "Did you make all of these?" Clara nodded, a smile tugging at her lips. "Yes, a long time ago. I haven't painted much recently, but I used to spend hours doing this." "Can you show me how?" Lily asked eagerly. "I want to try." Clara hesitated, then agreed. She wheeled over to a small table she had set up in the corner and pulled out a few brushes and paints she had been keeping for herself. They sat together, Lily on a small stool, Clara in her wheelchair, and Alex nearby watching and offering encouragement. As Lily dipped the brush into the paint and tried her first strokes, Clara guided her gently, showing her small techniques, helping her create shapes and patterns. Laughter filled the room whenever a brushstroke went slightly wrong, and Clara felt a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Alex joined in as well, attempting a few strokes on a blank canvas he had brought along. Lily giggled at his awkward attempts, and Clara couldn't help but laugh with them. The sound was freeing, breaking through the isolation that had weighed on her for so long. For hours they painted, laughed, and shared stories. Clara talked about her favorite memories, the places she had visited, and the dreams she had once held. Alex shared stories about his work, the challenges of being a single dad, and the silly adventures he and Lily had on weekends. Lily listened intently, asking questions and offering her own observations. When they finally paused, it was time for a small lunch. Alex had prepared sandwiches and fruit, bringing everything neatly in containers. They gathered around the small table in Clara's kitchen, eating and chatting. Clara realized that she had spent so many meals alone, the silence pressing down on her. But now the room was filled with voices, laughter, and warmth. She felt seen, not for her disability, but for who she was. A person with memories, thoughts, and feelings worth sharing. After lunch, Lily suggested they play a game. Clara hesitated, unsure if she could participate fully, but Alex helped adapt the rules so she could join in. They played for hours, cheering, laughing, and celebrating each small success. Clara's apartment, once quiet and lifeless, now felt like a home filled with energy, connection, and love. At one point, Lily tugged at Clara's sleeve. "Can we read some stories?" she asked eagerly. Clara nodded, feeling a wave of nostalgia. She hadn't read aloud in years. She picked up a small book from the shelf, brushing off the dust, and began to read. Lily sat on the floor, listening intently, while Alex leaned back in a chair, smiling as he watched them. Clara's voice, shaky at first, grew stronger as she read, and she realized how much she had missed these simple joys. As the afternoon sun began to filter through the windows, casting golden light across the room, Clara felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had not expected anyone to care about her birthday. She had prepared herself for another day of solitude, another day of quiet and reflection. Yet here they were, Alex and Lily, bringing laughter, warmth, and life into her apartment. She realized something important. It wasn't the cake, or the balloons, or the small gifts that mattered most. It was the presence, the attention, the care they had shown without expectation. It was the human connection that had been missing for so long, and now it had returned, gently but powerfully. Before leaving, Alex knelt beside Clara, looking into her eyes. "We'll come back tomorrow," he said softly. "Maybe we can do something else fun, something small, just to make your day even brighter." Clara nodded, a small smile spreading across her face. "I'd like that," she said. After they left, Clara wheeled back to the window. The street below was bustling with people, but now she didn't feel the same emptiness. The day, which had started with loneliness and quiet, had transformed into a memory of warmth, laughter, and human connection. She realized that sometimes life could surprise you, that small gestures of kindness could touch hearts in ways no one could anticipate. Across town, Alex and Lily walked home hand in hand. Lily chattered about the painting, the stories, the games, and the little moments she had loved most. Alex listened quietly, smiling to himself. Today had been simple, ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in its impact. He understood that small acts of care could ripple out, creating bonds that were deeper than anyone expected. As they turned the corner toward their home, Lily skipped ahead, humming softly. Alex held her hand tightly, feeling the satisfaction of knowing they had made a difference. He didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. This connection, formed through kindness and shared moments, was meaningful. And he felt certain that it was only the beginning of something that would change both their lives in ways they could not yet imagine. For Clara, the day ended with a quiet sense of hope. She wheeled herself to her small balcony, looking at the city lights flickering on as evening fell. She felt a warmth in her chest, a new understanding that even in her isolation, life could still bring moments of joy, friendship, and connection. For the first time in years, her birthday didn't feel lonely. It felt like the start of something new, something gentle, something worth holding on to. And as she gazed at the night sky, she whispered to herself, a soft smile on her lips, "Maybe things can be different. Maybe life can still surprise me." The days that followed Clara's birthday visit felt different from any she had experienced in a long time. The loneliness that had weighed so heavily on her seemed to lift, just a little with each visit. From Alex and Lily, what had started as a single act of kindness had begun to grow into something more, something that filled her apartment with life and warmth. That morning, Clara woke early, as she had on previous days since the visit. The sunlight spilled across the floor, making the patterns on her rug glow. She moved her wheelchair closer to the window, watching the world below. Children laughed on their way to school. Neighbors exchanged greetings as they walked past, and the hum of the city gave a steady rhythm to the day. For the first time in months, she felt anticipation instead of dread. Today she knew Alex and Lily would be visiting again. Across town, Alex was making breakfast while Lily helped set the table. She was bubbling with energy, insisting that they pack a few things to bring along to Clara's apartment. "Daddy, I want to bring some flowers this time," Lily said, her eyes bright. "They'll make her smile, I know it." Alex smiled, watching her carefully place small wildflowers into a jar. "That's a lovely idea," he said. "She'll appreciate that more than you know." Once they arrived, Clara was waiting by the door. She greeted them with a shy smile, one that quickly grew as Lily handed her the jar of flowers. "These are beautiful," Clara said softly. "Thank you." They stepped inside, and the apartment immediately felt alive again. The warmth of yesterday had returned, but today there was a new energy, a sense of comfort and belonging that Clara hadn't felt in years. She realized just how much she had missed the simple presence of other people, of someone who genuinely cared, of laughter and small gestures that reminded her life could still be meaningful. Alex suggested they start the day by doing something creative. "I thought we could make a little project together," he said. "Nothing big, just something fun to fill the day." Clara was hesitant at first, but Lily's enthusiasm was infectious. She agreed, and together they gathered supplies. The three of them set up a small area in the living room, bringing out paints, paper, and various craft materials. As they worked, the apartment was filled with laughter, soft chatter, and the sound of brushes on paper. Clara felt the tension she had carried for so long begin to melt away. Lily was naturally curious, asking about every detail of Clara's past, her favorite hobbies, and her life before the accident. Clara, at first reserved, found herself opening up. She shared stories of her childhood, the places she had visited, the dreams she once had, and the art she loved to create. Alex listened quietly, occasionally asking questions that encouraged her to share more. By mid-morning, Clara realized how much she had begun to enjoy these visits. Alex's presence was steady, gentle, and non-judgmental. He never treated her as fragile or incapable. Lily's energy was uplifting, reminding Clara of the joy and curiosity that children naturally carried. The combination of the two created a safe space where Clara felt seen and valued, not for her disability but for who she was as a person. After a while, Alex suggested they take a break and have some tea. Lily eagerly helped prepare it, humming a tune as she worked. Clara accepted the cup with a small smile, feeling the warmth of the tea seep into her hands and calm her in a way she hadn't expected. They sat together, sipping and chatting quietly. Clara found herself laughing at small jokes, sharing little anecdotes about her day, and even asking questions about Alex and Lily's lives. The afternoon was spent in a mix of activities. They played games that could be adapted for Clara's wheelchair, shared stories, and painted together. Each activity, no matter how small, brought moments of connection and joy. Clara realized that the simplest actions, a shared laugh, a gentle touch, a smile, were powerful enough to break the isolation she had carried for so long. At one point, Lily asked Clara to tell a story about her favorite painting. Clara wheeled over to the shelf where she kept a few of her cherished works. She picked up a small canvas and began to describe the scene she had painted: the rolling hills, the golden sky, the tiny figures walking along a path. As she spoke, Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. Alex watched quietly, sensing the significance of the moment. Clara wasn't just sharing a painting, she was sharing a piece of herself, something she had kept hidden for years. Afterward, they decided to go outside for a short walk. Alex helped Clara down the ramp of her building, and together they made their way to a nearby park. Lily ran ahead, calling back to them excitedly, while Clara and Alex followed at a steady pace. The fresh air was invigorating, the sound of birds and distant laughter soothing. Clara felt a sense of freedom, even within the limitations of her wheelchair, that she hadn't experienced in a long time. They found a quiet spot in the park and settled down. Alex and Clara talked about life, responsibilities, dreams, and the challenges they each faced. Lily played nearby, occasionally joining in with a question or comment. The conversation flowed naturally, without judgment or expectation. Clara felt herself letting go of fears and doubts she had carried for years. She realized that she could trust these people, that their presence was genuine, and that it didn't come with strings or pity. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the park, they made their way back to Clara's apartment. She felt lighter, as if the day had lifted a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying. The loneliness that had seemed permanent now felt less imposing. She had come to understand that human connection, even in small doses, could transform the way one experienced the world. Back at the apartment, they prepared a small snack and continued their afternoon activities. Clara shared more of her paintings, while Lily created her own little drawings inspired by what she saw. Alex joined in where he could, helping with tasks and encouraging both of them. The room was alive with energy, laughter, and creativity. Clara realized that she had not only gained companionship, but had also begun to reclaim a part of herself that had been buried under years of isolation. As the evening approached, Alex and Lily began to prepare to leave. Clara felt a pang of sadness at the thought, but also gratitude for the time they had shared. She had begun to look forward to these visits, to the small joys they brought, and to the sense of connection that had become a bright spot in her days. "Thank you," Clara said softly as she wheeled herself to the door. "Today has been wonderful." Alex smiled warmly. "We'll be back tomorrow," he said. "We'll think of something new to do. Just a little more fun. Nothing big, just to keep your days brighter." Lily hugged Clara's arm gently. "I can't wait," she said, her eyes sparkling. After they left, Clara moved to her window once more. The city was bathed in the soft glow of evening, the sounds of life continuing below. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and hope. Her birthday, which had begun as a lonely, quiet day, had become a turning point. She realized that connections, kindness, and shared moments could break through the isolation she had experienced for so long. As she sat there, reflecting on the day, she felt a quiet determination to embrace these changes. She understood that life could still surprise her, that even in the midst of challenges, moments of joy and connection could be found. She thought of Alex and Lily, and a smile spread across her face. They had shown her that human warmth could transform not just a day, but an entire outlook on life. That night, Clara went to bed feeling lighter than she had in years. The apartment, once quiet and heavy, now felt alive with memories of laughter, conversation, and small acts of kindness. She realized that these moments, simple as they might seem, were powerful. They reminded her that life was still full of possibilities, that relationships could be built in the most unexpected ways, and that even a lonely birthday could turn into something beautiful. As she drifted off to sleep, she whispered softly to herself, "Maybe things can be different. Maybe I'm not as alone as I thought." And for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that the days ahead held the promise of connection, laughter, and the small, meaningful moments that made life worth living. The following morning, Clara woke to a quiet excitement that she couldn't quite explain. She had been anticipating today all week. Alex and Lily had promised another visit, and somehow, she felt that today might be even more special than the others. The apartment felt different now. The small touches of color, the laughter that still lingered in her mind from previous days, and the simple decorations they had set up before made it feel alive and warm. She rolled her wheelchair closer to the window and looked out at the street below. Children were heading to school, neighbors were chatting as they walked by, and a gentle breeze stirred the leaves on the trees. Clara felt a smile tug at her lips. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. Across town, Alex and Lily were preparing for the visit with extra care. Lily had insisted on bringing a small bag of surprises, stickers, a few colorful drawings she had made the night before, and a little cake she had helped her father bake. "Daddy, I want to make sure she smiles today," she said, her eyes sparkling. Alex smiled, tying her shoelaces. "I know she will, Pumpkin," he said. "You have a good heart, and she'll see that." He felt the same nervous anticipation. They didn't know exactly how Clara would react, but they both wanted to make her day bright and memorable. When they arrived at Clara's building, she was already waiting by the door. Seeing them approach, she felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't expected. She wheeled over to greet them, and Lily immediately handed her the little bag of surprises. Clara opened it carefully and was touched by the small, thoughtful gifts. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes glistening. They stepped inside, and the apartment immediately felt alive again. Today, however, there was a special energy in the air. Alex had planned a small gathering, inviting a few neighbors and volunteers who had seen the flyer at the community center. Nothing large or extravagant, just enough to fill the apartment with a sense of celebration and connection. Clara felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. She hadn't had visitors like this in years, and the thought of people filling her home was both overwhelming and heartwarming. As the guests began to arrive, Clara noticed the smiles, the warm greetings, and the genuine kindness in their eyes. Each person brought something small, a card, a flower, a homemade treat. They didn't know her personally, yet they had come to share a moment, to celebrate her life. Clara felt tears well up, a combination of gratitude, surprise, and something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, Lily took the lead, showing everyone around the apartment and explaining the little decorations they had put up. Alex helped guide Clara through the introductions, making sure she felt comfortable. For the first time in years, Clara's apartment was filled with voices, laughter, and the gentle hum of human connection.